It's my full wingspan. But there's issues, there's problems out there. And this is where we can talk a little bit about the fact that a lot of people aren't engaging. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the content that I talk about, but I would often talk about at trade shows, what are the problems those prospects are spending? Mm-hmm. So for example, right now, we're a spot, and I just cut it here. We're in a spot in history where we don't have to engage with people as much anymore. Right? We can go to an ATM, we can self-check out our groceries, we can buy things online, have them delivered on Amazon. So there's a bit of a disconnect here of us not engaging with people, okay? Mm-hmm. At the same time, we have a disconnect in the fact that, we'll cut it again, that we are competing with all this technology.
Anders, you have one of the most unique backgrounds I've ever encountered, and it started with a magic set from Fisher-Price. Now you're helping Fortune 500 companies. How have you made magic your secret weapon?
I mean, I didn't set out to do that. Of course, I was 5 years old when I got the Fisher-Price magic set. I just loved magic. And I think if I'm really honest about like the ego side of things, you can do something that other people can't, and you get attention, and it makes you feel special and that sort of thing. And I think that drives a lot of magicians for quite some time, right? Just this idea that you feel special, right?
Yeah.
You get to a certain point where you go, okay, I don't really need that anymore, and that's all good. And at one point, I started being paid to do magic, and that's how I made my living. I paid my way through university. I got a physics degree that I never used. Okay. And so at one point, I started doing some trade shows and realized that was actually a way of performing to attract attention, not to yourself, but to a brand or to a solution or something. And then in 2007, I got trained by one of the very best, a man named Joel Bauer, and showed me a new and better way of looking at things. And he really coined the term infotainer, meaning it's not about an entertainer, but conveying information in a unique and engaging way that is entertaining. And it becomes the spoonful of sugar that helps the medicine go down. So we do help a lot of technology companies, whether there's a lot of complexity or you're selling an intangible, or it's just so dry and boring that you need a little something extra. So that journey really was just kind of a higher and better use for my skill set that I've developed for performing, but being able to then, again, put that attention on these Fortune 500 company brands.
Do you have like an aha moment? Is just doing it for a trade show as the aha moment, or do you have like something that just really stands out?
Well, I mean, I think there was a time where I wanted to be the next David Copperfield, right? And there was like a lot of magicians my age, that's who they looked up to. And then there was a certain point where I realized I'm in Manitoba. I did a lot of, I would perform at a lot of farmer appreciation events, and I was performing in I was never, or not usually, performing in a theater with a nice stage, right? It was just that, and so then when I started doing trade shows, it was a different, it was kind of a different twist on it, but I realized I could be really good at that, right? And it was kind of I realized that this could be my thing, as opposed to going down the traditional route of, like our listeners, no one really knows the traditional route of a magician, but what you would think of a magician, right? And so I don't remember the exact flashpoint, but I do remember saying to myself, I think I can be really good at this. And so my love of marketing and business kind of really marries into that as well, just because you have to kind of understand what those objectives of the company are, and you have to be able to speak business with them and hang in there with them, and that elevates their trust in your ability to deliver as well. So there was something in there. I can't pinpoint it exactly. But
it's all good. It's interesting because you are the entrepreneur to come in and say, I just kind of stumbled on it and it felt right, and I just kind of found my place. Even me, doing this channel, I just kind of stumbled into it, and now it's what I feel like I need to do. Can we go into how your magic principles translate to real business tangibles?
Sure. And really, I think whether it's magic actually translating into business? I mean, it's like we can kind of talk about how this works and why this works and just kind of uncover that, because I think there is, if you even think of just storytelling and business, right? And I don't know if you've ever read Creating Your StoryBrand by Donald Miller, but that's a lot about storytelling and marketing, right? And so this idea that if you can put the prospect, the person, that you're trying to help, into a story that they can see themselves in, it helps future pace. It helps put them into like, what would it be like, and how can this work? And it's not you being the company that can help as the hero, but it's you're the guide and they're the hero, right? So in magic, there's often a beginning, middle, and end. And in that, we can tell a little bit of a story. We can use the magic as a metaphor to be able to then transport this person and actually just kind of, take them out of their conscious mind a little bit and just, get them to imagine a little bit. And so with magic, it's so funny we're just talking about it like this, because we're, the actual. So let's for our listeners, let's just kind of an example of something that I would do is that I would take a little floss box, and actually, you know what? We're on video. Why don't we do it right now? Okay. So I've got some floss in front of me for the people listening, but they can't see it. I'm going to stretch it out. Cody, do me a favor. Say stop at any time.
Go ahead and stop.
Yeah, I got my arms fully stretched out, Cody. That's as far as I can go. Thanks a lot for that. So,
No problem.
Cody, we got a lot of floss where we're at, okay?
Yeah.
And I'm stretching it out in front of me. It's my full wingspan. But there's issues. There's problems out there. And this is where we can talk a little bit about the fact that a lot of people aren't engaging, okay? So I'm going to talk a little bit about the content that I talk about, but I would often talk about at trade shows, what are the problems those prospects are spending? Mm-hmm. So for example, right now, we're a spot, and I just cut it here. We're in a spot in history where we don't have to engage with people as much anymore, right? We can go to an ATM, we can self-check out our groceries, we can buy things online, have them delivered on Amazon. So there's a bit of a disconnect here of us not engaging with people, okay? Mm-hmm. At the same time, we have a disconnect in the fact that, we'll cut it again, that we are competing with all this technology. Like, I'm staring at you on my screen, yet the Chrome browser's open and I'm getting notifications and I'm trying to stay focused on you. We have a phone that is a pocket full of distractions, right? So we've got all these issues. So what we're trying to do at my company, Engagify, and whether it's engagifying teams or engagifying individuals, people, we want to make it better and make you more engaging so you can command attention and deepen connection with the people you're trying to communicate with. So when you ball things up and you realize there are these skills, there are these things we can work on, there are these principles and even a neuroscience to engagement, you realize that we can actually get our hands on this and we can make it so that our interactions are face-to-face interactions, that they stick with people. We want them to be memorable. And right now I've taken all those pieces I've cut up, I've balled them up into one tiny ball, and the floss has a bit of wax, and I can make that ball just sit there. I think you can see that. But what we want to do is, if we can just embrace these teachings and learn how to engage, all of a sudden we can make a profound impact on the people we come in contact with, okay? So I just stretched my arms out again for the listener, and now the floss is restored. So if we just break that down and kind of talk about it, it was problem, 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 cut, 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 cut. Mm-hmm. What if we could ball them up and now restored, right? And we talk about kind of the solution, or what is that thing that we're looking at. And so, we call that a transformation mechanism, right? Or an engaging element. That we're not saying you have to do magic, but what can we do to add to what we're saying to just give it that hook, give it that relevance, give it that connection, And for those of you who are watching and listening, I'm coming out with a book October 7th, and a lot of these ideas, this like psychology, all of it is in that book, and it's just really about how we need to engage people before we can communicate, sell, persuade, influence, etc. So Does that answer your question? I went off on a tangent
no.
a little bit, but the demonstration I think was apropos, right? So
absolutely perfect, and the magic surprised me. As I love watching Penn and Tellers fool me every once in a while, and magic has always been one of those things I just always found engaging. And yes, trying to reenact and trying to get people to refocus their mind on what you're talking about is definitely a skill that a lot of people don't have. Do you think with the age of AI, people are going to get better at engaging in storytelling? Even from what we're doing, do you think it's going to get better from an individual perspective to be more engaging on those levels?
no. I think it's the opposite in many ways, Cody, unfortunately. I mean, there's a few, the state of engagement, like the fact that AI is, and there's actually studies now coming out where people aren't using their brains now, right? And they're like relying on the AI to create things. And so we're not being as creative. We're not staying in our right brain as much. And you go for a cup of coffee and then people don't like even smile at you, right? When you're getting customer service, like there's little bits, and I don't want to pick on any generation or anything, but that's one thing that's in kind of the zeitgeist right now, right? So like the AI, I'm not a Luddite. I'm not trying to like put down artificial intelligence. I think it's a valuable time-saving tool. And yet at the same time, the AI that we talk about in Engagify is authentic interactions. So that idea that we need to focus on that, we need to lean into our humanness and be ourselves even more so, because when you look at things here, Cody, like information, knowledge is cheap.
Yeah.
ChatGPT on one level, like older, right? 4 is free. Mm-hmm. So anything that AI knows, we can have access to if you have an internet connection, right? But the idea of how we communicate that information, how we transfer that knowledge to other people, how we persuade, how we influence, that is the human element to it, right? Like just the content is not enough, but how that content is positioned, is shaped, is delivered, that really is that human piece. So we need to up that game. That's really what our platform's all about is let's not lose that. I think older generations understand that a little bit more, but they didn't grow up the same way, right? So there's a different perspective.
Yeah, my grandfather back in the day, you have to network, you have to engage with these people. Oh, that would have been great to have that connection or that connection. It definitely has been lost over the generations. What, in terms of what you've seen in the market, how have you seen people engage badly? What are bad things to do when you're trying to engage your audience?
Well, I think one of the things that is, we talked about distractions earlier, right, is presence, right? Really being with someone, really giving them your full attention, I think is really, really rare these days. And just almost like as a reminder for yourself to kind of write it on your hand or something, like bring that into your interactions and just try to be with those people. I think you'd be shocked at how they respond to you, because it's so rare that when people do have that presence, you're suddenly like, whoa, like this is different, right? Like you're going to stand out in their day. And it's just kind of a shift for them. Another author named Olivia Fox-Cabane, she wrote a book called The Charisma Myth. And in it, she talks about what you actually need for charisma. There's 3 elements, and one of them is warmth, and then the other one is presence, and then the third one is power. You only need 2 out of 3, is what she says. So when we look at some examples, you look at Steve Jobs, he was very present and he had power. He was CEO of Apple. And then you look at someone like Bill Clinton, who was governor of Arkansas and then of course a president, right? He was from the South and he had a way of talking. Like he had a warmth to him, and his presence, and people have seen him speak, say like his eye contact is just through the roof, that you actually feel like you're the only one in the room, even though you're in a whole auditorium or whole arena kind of thing. He really hit 3 for 3 in that case. So when you look at that warmth and presence, the power thing is subjective. It's contextual. The idea that if you're talking to me about engagement, well, I have power because I'm an expert in that, right?
Yeah.
And you're an expert in what you do, and everyone's an expert in them, right? Like a great example too is like you've got out on the golf course, you've got a golf pro and a surgeon, right? The golf pro is the expert in that context, but then outside of that or in the hospital, of course, the surgeon is going to have that. So with that, when you bring it into your interactions, can you be warmer? Can you be more present? And I think that fixes a lot of things that we see wrong. I live in the trade show world and doing a lot of things where we're engaging with people, walking down aisles, and so many people are passive, right? They're just like waiting to be engaged with. Well, everyone's waiting to be engaged with in a sense, right? No one wants to make the first move. No one wants to take risks. And so I think that would be another thing that I see out there is like making the first move, be the first to engage. That goes a long way as well.
Sure. I just wanted to say, like, that's how I've kind of structured my podcast. Hopefully one day I can have it in person. But I like to be involved because, like, the way I see this podcast is a collaboration between me and you. And that's how I always want it to be, because I want to understand where you're coming from. This channel, everything I'm doing is more for my curiosity than my audience. But like, I want to give you the time to showcase who you are and your expertise and give my insight as well. It does take, it is a difference. I've been in podcasts where you just get asked the same questions as like the previous person, and it's not that warm, welcoming environment. And I hope I've given that to you here. But so I just wanted to say that. And in terms of,
I just want to jump on that while you're thinking of that, or maybe I'll distract you off of that. But that collaboration you were just talking about, Cody, co-creation is a beautiful thing, right? When I'm performing, I used to always think like I would have like, I want the presentation that I want to do, but then there's the presentation that the audience needs. And the presentation the audience needs may work into the fact that there's distractions, may work into the fact that someone is from somewhere or they said something, right? And you're not ignoring what happened. You're using it all. You're using what is, and that's making it more special, right? That's creating a moment that will never happen again. And so I think, you collaborating with your guests and just being there for them, creating this conversation is really that co-creation. It's not like you're not manufacturing a podcast episode, right? We're coming together and meeting in the middle. Yeah.
And I think that's where the world needs to go. Like, I'm taking my cues from some of the biggest podcasts out there. Generally, they're just warm and there for you and the audience. And that's all I wanted to be. Do you have any tips for somebody trying to get people engaged? Do you have like a 5-minute course or a 4-step process or anything?
Yeah. You know what? I usually talk about an acronym we use that we teach in a number of our courses, and it's called SAVE You. And so it's SAVE and then U, the letter U. Okay. So I'll just go through that really quickly if we have a few minutes here. So the S is for simplify. Okay. So much of the time, especially days, and we spend a lot of time in the tech world, everything's so complex that we tend to tune out. And the cognitive overload is the term, a complex term for just like, hey, we're overwhelmed. Our brain is only 2% of our body weight, but it consumes 20% of our energy. So it does this to protect itself. If it's working too hard, that's people then start thinking about what they're going to have for lunch, and you just start daydreaming kind of thing. So if you can simplify, how do we simplify? Acronyms, alliterations, rhymes, metaphors, that sort of thing. I did a magic trick to symbolize things. So that's one way. Save You is an acronym to kind of condense this down. So that's what the S is. The A is authority. That is how you represent yourself, how you frame yourself, how you talk, your voice. I'm trying to talk about this like it has some importance because I believe it does. So that's part of it. how I'm dressed. If I was just in a t-shirt with holes and stains, people would start writing me off. There's all these kind of ways in that authority, and your presence comes into that too. So that's the S and the A. The V is to do with visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, and that's our varying the senses. So we all have our favorite sense. Like I'm very visual, so I talk fast, my hands wave around a lot, I say look, see, that kind of thing. People are auditory, they're a little slower, they're a little bit more lower tone, they might be a little more modulation. They're often musicians, that sort of thing, but they're going to say, hey, does that sound good to you, right? Does that resonate? And then kinesthetics, they're always down here, and they always like, they're internal, you know, and they kind of like, that, I don't know if that feels right, you know, that kind of thing. So when you have a whole audience, you don't know what you've got, right? It's a mixture. So varying the senses and talking about it in different ways that you're talking about see, feel, and hear, you know, and that's going to keep them engaged because you feel like you're talking to them. Yeah. If you're just talking to one person, you might figure out what that person is and then, you know, stay on their same level. And then the E is emotional. So we're down to save now. We don't have the U yet, but the E is emotional. And when I say emotional, it always sounds like I don't want to get emotional. Like not like we're going to cry, but we do want people to feel things. Mm-hmm. Now, when I did my little cry voice there, you smiled. You know, there was a little comedic little moment, and I'm not saying it was hilarious. I'm just saying you reacted to it, right? Mm-hmm. And so whether or not you touch the heartstrings of people, whether or not you are creating curiosity by the way that you reveal something, right? There's all different types of emotions. And what happens is in a day, we don't remember the average of the day. We remember the peaks, the times where we have peaked people's state of mind to such a point. So emotion plays a big role in that. So that's why when I do the presentations and trade show booths, when I interact with people, I want to create emotion because I want them to remember what the message is behind that, right? Very important. Yeah. And then the U is really about you focused. I say it with a U as a letter, but it's Y-O-U really. And that's, we want to make things relevant, right? And it's the idea that is this something you want, or am I talking about something you definitely want to avoid, right? Like, I don't want that. So it's like, a classic example is on the news, they'll do that little clip. Well, if anyone has, for all the non-cable cutters, this is an old reference, I guess, but it's just like the nightly news when they tease something, they're like, 3 things in your basement that may be killing you tonight at 11, right? And that's that kind of like, oh, I want to find out what that is because it could be harmful, right? That's that negative side of things. And then the positive is, yeah, what is that dopamine? What is that reward? What is that spike? What is that something I want? And if we keep that content on either side of that, well, that's going to help create engagement too, because you're just talking about what people want, right? That particular group or that particular person. So that's my little save you acronym for, and if you feel like you're losing engagement, it'll save you. Okay.
Very fair, and I like the add in at the end there. So where can people reach you? What do you have coming next? Give my audience everything about it.
For sure. I'm probably most active on LinkedIn, and it's Anders Boulanger, which last name, I'll just spell it Boulanger. Looks like Boulanger. It's baker in French for all the Canadians who know what that's all about. And then our website is Engagify.ai. And actually the book, because this is just getting up, is Engage First and engage-first.com. That will actually take you to the book page, and there'll be 4 ways to engage, like a free PDF report there. And then there'll be a link if you want to get the book. We actually are offering a training, which I think retails for over $100 some bucks US, but it's called the Fundamental 5, and it's a presentation training. So if you get the book, you go find a keyword in the book, it'll unlock that training, and you can learn a ton from both the book and that presentation training. Okay.
I appreciate you hiding the keyword in the book, and I'll make sure all of the information is down below, minus the keyword.
Yeah.
And thank you very much for coming on. Do you have any final words you'd like to give to the audience?
Yeah, you know what? I think, my philosophy and the book title, Engage First, I mean, like let's make an effort, be the first to engage, and then make sure you get that engagement, and then do whatever it is you're doing. So if you're trying to, again, sell, you're trying to persuade, educate, communicate, whatever it is, it's probably going to fall on deaf ears and won't be remembered unless you have that engagement. So do that first.
Thank you very much. And to all my audience out there, stay weird.